Hi, I'm Romi.
And I'm Nicole. Welcome to the Her Pursuit Pod, where we share our journey of building our business, The Daily Drip, a dynamic media platform that provides content and community for more than 4,000 South Florida female CEOs, founders, business owners, executives, and professionals.
Whether it's through our newsletter, events, or this podcast, our hope is to inspire your next big move and arm you with the tools you need to crush it. So tune in on your drive to work, wind down with us after a long day as we share our journey and the journeys of other remarkable business leaders on Her Pursuit. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Her Pursuit. I'm Romi Wallach, co-founder of The Daily Drip, and I have two of our amazing thought leaders here today, Balaum and LaFrance. And I'm really excited for this conversation because I think there's a lot of synergy here. It's all about rediscovering the woman you are today and embracing who we are now through all these transitions, and focusing on your identity through change, you know? And I think coming off of the last conversation we had and your article, I think there's a lot to be said for, stepping into this sort of period in your life where you start to really kind of get sure of who you are and what you're doing. So I want to start with you, Michelle. And I want to know, how would you define your younger self, and what is the one word you would use to describe her?
Oh, rule follower.
That's 2 words.
Rule follower, hyphenated. The culture that I came from, the way I was brought up, being a good girl, following the rules, doing what was expected of you, not having a voice. Well, what's a voice? You don't need a voice. Like, you
That's
already
why you need
know.
a microphone.
I was going to say, we didn't share this on this episode, but both of you, for those who are listening, my guests are both carrying microphones. Why?
That's
because
right.
it is how they have found their voice. And now you're not shutting them up. No. They found it, and there's no stopping it.
Yeah.
Continue.
So good girl or rule follower would definitely be what I lived the majority of my life as. And it's weird to be at this stage, because I'm definitely in Act 3 of discovering there are no rules. There are no rules. You have been following other people's rules. You have been doing what other people wanted you to do. Why? And that fight inside of you hurts.
Yeah.
Right? It really hurts. And coming to grips with, I don't have to say yes. I don't have to be nice. This is me being nice. Like, I am worse, like, if I'm not nice. So I don't have to be nice. I can be who I want to be and do what I want to do. And that's revolutionary.
Yeah.
Like, revolutionary.
Was there something or a moment that kind of gave you that all of a sudden you woke up and thought, enough is enough? Like, I'm done playing this part. I'm done doing for other people.
Which divorce do we want to talk about?
Well, I think it's...
I only have 2 legitimate ones with lawyers, but I had long-term relationships.
Were those...
So those periods of time where I had bought into someone else's life and promoting that other person, their goals, their dreams, their things, and then getting to the point where you're like, what am I doing? What am I doing? That was the point.
I love that, though, because you kind of went then, and I see this with actually quite a few women now, where they find that and the freedom that comes with that to just own all of a sudden and be authentically who you are. And I know people throw that word around a lot, and it's become like a buzzword.
Well, what's really cool is that when you do decide and you do make that decision, nothing bad happens.
Right.
Nothing bad happens.
Well, you go from pleasing others to pleasing yourself.
Exactly.
And I think that is it is hard. And we talked a little bit about this earlier, but because you care about the people around you, but there all of a sudden becomes a shift where it's like, I care, but I care more about what I think of myself. Right. I care more about how I feel about me. And this doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't feel aligned. It feels completely off. Right. So do you have a word for your younger self?
Yes, but can I do a rebuttal or a comment on this conversation?
There were several mic drops that we should have done, but we didn't.
Yes. So I can't help but think about, I don't know if you guys or how many people listening watched the show The Big C with Laura Linney. It was probably 20 years ago now, but it was a wonderful show about a woman who was going through terminal cancer. And she went on a retreat, and there was sort of this guru type, Tony Robbins type guy. And one of the exercises that they were doing on this retreat is that all of these people had to pick up these big, huge boulders and carry them around. And she kept saying, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And finally, she took the boulder out of the backpack and she put it on the ground. And he said, you learned the lesson.
Oh.
We don't have to carry these big, huge stones and boulders around with us.
Exactly.
And the other thing I like to say to a lot of women, you hear a lot of people say, I want to be her when I grow up. No, you want to be you when you grow up. Yeah. And that's what we're all doing. We're living our lives to become, as you say, our authentic selves, not somebody else.
And I was never allowed. And I don't know why I felt I wasn't allowed. It was like these imaginary rules from imaginary rule makers and imaginary rule keeper. Like, I don't know why. Who taught me that I had to follow the rules?
Well, I think our parents somewhat shape that because it's not so much what they say, but it's sort of like just the space you're growing up in.
Yeah.
I mean, Lisa and I talked about this earlier, and we were talking about Tiffany's article about showing up and shining and all of that. And, the example set for me is I saw my mom. She literally is still to this day one of the best humans I've ever known. But I knew that. Everyone around her knew that. Everyone would say, oh my God, your mom's amazing. Your mom's this. And I would watch my mom just kind of shrink away from that and be like, it's not a big deal. Like, nobody needs to make such a fuss. And so I think that it wasn't so much what she said, but my sister and I grew up thinking like there's something almost distasteful to embrace or feel good or take in compliments. The only response I witnessed was like, can everyone just stop? Like, it's not that big a deal. So it's not so much what we're saying, but it's, it's the space we're growing up in. And especially if these are people we look up to and we admire, we assume that that's the right way.
What's really interesting about when you talk about your mom, so my mom was born the same year as Betty White, so 1922, right? So we've just had her 100th shortly. But she was atypical because she had a job, was working in, I think it's Firestone. It was one of the rubber companies. So she was a lab tech at Firestone, making a very good salary, buying gorgeous clothes, going on river cruises in the Great Lakes, like going to New York, doing these things. She didn't get married till her 30s.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah,
I didn't
which
come
back then
until
was a big
late
deal.
30s. So it was a very unusual thing. And then she had to quit her job and go to work for her husband's family because they had the 19 restaurants, and her father was furious because she went from like this prestige job to being a waitress basically for 50 cents an hour or something like that back in the day. So I watched my mom like just work like insane, right? Because we were a family business. So you wake up, you go to work. That's how you do it.
Right.
Every day, 7 days a week. It doesn't matter if it's Christmas or whatever, we went. So watching her, and she always said like kind of, you're going to be able to do the things I wasn't able to do. Like when I bought the Miata, little red convertible, I always wanted one, right? So I would put her in the car and drive her around and stuff like that. So there were so many, like I watched her, she tried to do it in the 50s and 60s, but she got thwarted.
stifled, yeah.
She got thwarted and followed the rules and did her thing. But I could always feel this longing that she had. Like, I went off to Europe. She's like, that's amazing. Like, you're off in Europe doing like whatever. I don't know what you're doing because, we didn't. Phone calls were expensive.
Right.
Mail was expensive. Like, y'all don't know.
Yeah.
That's right. We had to write on really thin paper.
Yeah, it's called air mail paper. It was like tissue paper.
We had to call through an operator. I mean, that was legit. Like when I lived in
What
Europe,
is it?
you had to call through the operator.
sure.
Like you'd have to walk to the payphone.
Yeah, international too.
Yeah.
There's a special number that
So
you
all
had
this
to dial.
communication. So the fact that I watched her kind of suffer following the rules, where she was an outlier. Like, she was not the mom that made cookies and things. Like, she stayed home once for like 2 weeks and she was like, yeah, no, I can't do this. And she went back to work. So it's kind of, I did have a rule breaker growing up to watch, but she succumbed to following what she was supposed to do.
And you did it the opposite. You followed the rule, and then you broke out of it, and now you break the rules. And so I think to this
You're
day, your
smashing
mom
rules left and
is
right.
looking down and saying she's
Yeah,
still
she's
doing all
like-
the things I wish I could have done.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's pretty incredible.
Exactly.
So my word when I was little, and also actually I want to say, I think you were talking about family and really how that can shape you. I think the decade you grow up in, I think the time and what's going on in the society around you shapes you. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately because I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. And that's a very unique time period, I think. But anyway, so when I was a little girl, I was a nerd. I was a total nerd. And my point about society is that at that time, as a little girl, and a girl that loved math, okay?
Oh my God. I flunked every math class I ever touched.
I was an unusual kid, and I felt like I didn't fit in a lot. I felt that people made fun of me a lot because I was the awkward smarty pants.
Girls don't do math. Girls don't do math.
Fortunately, I was encouraged to do math, so it wasn't, I know some of my friends that had teachers that said, you can't do math, and that's literally why they couldn't do math. So stop that, teachers. But anyway, today, I call myself a nerd, but I say it unapologetically. I own it. I think nerds are sexy today.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Lisa's bringing sexy back for nerds everywhere. And it's funny you say that because I literally was texting with someone this morning and I wrote to him, I said, sorry, I'm such a nerd. And it's funny that you're saying this right now.
Yeah.
And proudly.
Yeah, proud nerd.
Proud nerds.
Yeah.
So so now we know how we got to here, but how would you define then who you are today? Having gone through all of this, through what life experiences.
So that word is brave. Just brave. Like willing to be alone, willing to be together, willing to do things, willing to not do things. It's kind of like no excuses anymore. I should be doing this. No excuses. Boom. Just doing what, like really coming to the core of what do you need? What should you do? Like I am to the point now in my my morning writing meditations and things where I ask myself, okay, body, what do you need today? Have you ever asked your body what it needs today?
No, but it does tell me quite loudly.
It does. Like, and
I haven't been listening, but that's like a whole separate issue.
Wait till you get a certain age.
Sleep would
It
be
is
nice.
so loud you cannot not hear it. So it's kind of like asking myself, what do you need today? Here's the question I have. When are you happy? What is happy?
Right.
Like, I have to go back, like, what's happy? What would make me happy? Like, go back and figure out really what happy is because I'm just busy about getting the next thing done, getting the next thing done, getting the next thing done.
Yeah.
Will you be happy when you're here done? No, because I have this and this and this. It's like it just.
But you'll be happy when you have your microphone with you. Because microphones make us happy.
Microphones do make us
sparkly.
happy. They're very fun.
Yeah.
They're
Michelle,
so shiny.
I think if I had to pick the word, I would have picked brave as well. I really do admire. I see how you show up. I see what you're doing. I see how truly you have a certain level of confidence in who you are and what you want, and you are unapologetic about it. And I think that is such an amazing thing for us to have in our community to look to, for you to set that example. Like it's really quite phenomenal. And look what you're doing. Like I'm not even, I don't want to like use your age. That's not what I'm getting at, but it's just a stage in your life. Like I think we all aspire to work towards that place where you just feel so good in your own skin and feel like I'm doing it for me now. Like I'm not trying to please or accommodate or do for others. This is who I am, and I'm going to be brave and show up exactly like this. Take it or fucking leave it.
Well, it's kind of like also when you're like, when are you going to retire? It's like, what is retire? Like that when I die, I guess I'll be retired.
That's the ultimate
but
retirement.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of, it's hard because my group of girlfriends are in another planet as far as I'm concerned. Like they're like, they're scrolling down and I am scrolling
You're ramping up.
Yeah, and if I could just say as somebody that has the extreme pleasure of working with Michelle, her bravery, her boldness, her honesty and directness is one of the things I love the most. Because we don't have time to waste right here. We are on a very big mission and it's going to take a lot of hard work. So if I'm going on the wrong track, she tells me right away and I am really grateful for that.
Oh, well, thank you.
I think that's living a life like you've talked about where like you've learned enough and you get to a point where you're like, why am I, like, what am I doing?
Right.
Like, who am I pleasing? Who am I doing this for if I'm not doing it for myself?
Exactly.
And I love that she's passed that over to you. I think that's fantastic. And these are the people you want to be surrounded by.
Yeah.
You know, it's important to have people in your life that are keeping you in check and really like holding up the mirror and asking you,
Right.
is this it? Is this what you want?
Right.
So what about you?
What's the question again?
We were talking about how you would define who you are today, and how
I'm
have your
still a nerd,
experiences.
but I'm a sexy nerd.
That's a mic drop.
No, but actually the word, and Michelle probably knows what word I like to use to describe myself, is curiosity. I think you always have to stay curious. I always say I don't know what I don't know. I always ask questions. I want to learn as much as I can about as many things as I can. I think a full life is defined by lots of varied experiences, not just knowing all the same kinds of people or going to all the same kinds of places, but a diversity of both the people in your life and of your experience is what makes the journey so interesting. And I think that's fueled by curiosity, to learn things you don't know about.
I love that. I'm curious.
What's
I
your
like to
what's your
learn.
word?
What's
You're
my
brave.
word?
You said brave, but what's your word?
What is my word?
You can't have that one, Michelle, or you
I
Yeah.
know. I
And you can't have
know.
curious
And I don't
either.
know that I would say brave. I think I don't know what the word would be to describe it. I think for me, like I'm a yes person in the sense that I'm all in to try things that are daunting and scary and challenge me. So I don't know what the word is for that, but I do
Courageous.
believe that
Courageous.
maybe. I think so. I've done it sort of I think where I'm at today is I now see it. I didn't see that I was doing it along the way, but everything I've done to get to where I'm at today has been by stepping into uncomfortable situations and going at things that I don't know and just figuring it out. Like I live by FAFO, fuck around and find out is almost
Yeah.
like how I have navigated everything, especially during my career years, like
Yeah.
since my early 40s.
I mean, I think maybe one word is creativity, right? I mean, I think there's a lot of creativity in how you just live your life. I like to say that we're all creative because we're all creating our lives.
Yeah.
So, and I see that in everything you just said. It just seemed to speak
So
creativity.
words are so important to me, and so creativity. I have a weird relationship to the word creativity.
Interesting.
Because it's too overused. It's
This
too.
is the kind of conversation Michelle and I have all the time.
It's too. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we need to think of a different word for creativity. I think there's so many facets to creativity. It's like that, really work on what do I mean when I say
that.
creative?
Yeah.
What do I mean when I say creative? Because I think it's a catch-all. It just turns into a catch-all.
Or it's
So-
an exclusionary word. That's why
Yeah.
I'm trying to sort of redefine it to say we are all creative.
Yeah.
Because
Well, I think everyone's an artist.
Exactly.
First of
So
all.
same thing,
Every,
yeah.
Everything is art. This is art.
Yes.
What we're doing
We're
is art. This is
co-creating
art.
an
This is-
experience.
This is
Yeah, I
all
love that.
artistic.
We always say co-creating.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. So what are the old expectations at this point, now that we've gotten here, what are the old expectations that you need to get rid of or that you've shed over time to be where you're at today?
You don't have to fight things to be powerful. Sometimes actually accepting things is the purest form of power.
Wow.
And I think where that's showing up the most for me right now is in my relationship with my husband. He can be a pain in the neck. Thank God he's not going to listen to this. And that refers back to an earlier conversation. But, I get him and I just love him and I just don't let it bother me like I used to. And it's a really better place for our relationship to be.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think finding a deep we talked a lot about this on our call last week, but just a deep understanding of the people around us. Like, you've been with your husband a long time. I've been with mine for 27 years. And even with the people around me that love me, like, they think they know what's best for you. And so a lot of the feedback comes from that place, comes from a place of love, even if it's
Yeah.
demonstrated in a way that doesn't feel good
Right.
in the moment.
So
but
that's
it
kind
comes
of
from a good
that's
place.
kind of like mission vision. So mission is local, which you guys are talking about your families and your husbands and stuff. I'm the same thing, but I'm visionary, so it's global. So I look at it as a global thing where I just don't. It's like if you are having a stressed out thing, okay, go stress out about it. Like I'm more forgiving to a lot of situations where if I can't get my way or if it didn't go the way I thought it was going to be, or what, I'm like, okay, this is what we're doing now. Okay.
And that's another great thing about working with her.
If there's a hill I want to die on, I will tell you, like, no, I'm not giving this up. Everything else is all negotiable. It's like, okay, because that's what you find out after you've lived a period of years is it's either A or B, and it doesn't effing matter. It's like people and their colors. It's like whether you choose red or you choose green for your logo, it doesn't matter. What matters is it's for you and how you feel about it and how you define it. That's why I'm like, define for me what creative means. Define for me what brave means. Define those words. Like really take the words. I love words so much. So I like take words and I really break them down and define them and say, what does this mean to me? Like, how can I, like, what am I saying? What am I really saying? Right?
Michelle, have you ever read a book where the writing and the word choice was just so perfect that it moved you every page you read? What book was that?
I don't know.
Well, I think Cormac McCarthy, All the Pretty Horses, and that was very intentional language that he used. But there's been a few books I've read.
You can usually go to my books, and if there's a lot of sticky
gonna
notes in it.
I'm going to have to come look through your books because I'm an avid, well, I used to be an avid reader. I don't have as much time.
The one book that I am like still totally in love with is On Our Best Behavior.
Oh, I don't know that.
She is, I mentioned it before when we were doing book things a little bit with it, but she kind of researches the patriarchy and she goes through like religion and all these things and like really breaks down like why are we doing what we're doing? Why are we like those decisions that we talked about, like following the rules and doing this and doing that as women. So it's from a woman's point of view. On Our Best Behavior, amazing book. That is a book where I like would read a couple pages and have to like go, okay, I need a minute here. Like, and you know me, I'm like usually, flipping through stuff, but it's so demonstrative. It's so thought-provoking. That's if I have to pick a recent book, that would be the book for me.
That sounds incredible because it sounds like it's also talking about maybe smashing the patriarchy,
she smashes everything.
And
everything.
And that's sort of the world we're living in right now, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people think that the way to change things is to destroy things, and I don't know where I fall on that. Well, I do, but I won't say.
Yeah, here's a great thing. Like, I was having a conversation with somebody. I now can't remember who it was. I don't know what we were talking about, but I was very specifically saying, well, the path that you're talking about it's patriarchal. The system that we work in is patriarchal.
Right.
So what? Oh, I know. It was Tamara. Right. Her name is not Tomorrow. Tamara. But it was like, why do we think, your brand has to be like businessy and looking right? It's because that is a patriarchal way of thinking. Because why can we sit here in the clothes that we're not in suits? We're not. It's like, because we're women and there's a different kind of collaboration and there's a different kind of view. And that is the difference between a matriarchal system and a patriarchal system. So we grew up with business has to be correct and you have to be proper and you have to be, you don't. You don't.
Putting emojis in my emails. If I was doing that in my hedge fund,
we walk around
it would have been
with glittery,
very shunned.
dick-shaped mics.
Okay, now that we might have to cut out. I don't know if that goes.
I don't say anything.
But I hear what you're saying, and I think like what's really important about the message really is that you no longer have to, like, you get to define all of this for you. And I think we're living in a time where I think we went from such an overproduced, everything had a filter, all of those kinds of things. Clearly, there's no filters in here.
You're kidding.
There's hold on the cameras.
I hope so.
Zero filters. But I mean, listen, I grew up, my mom was always dressed in a suit. Like, I don't even want to think about what she'd think about how I show up. But for me, that is also, like, even though it was never deliberate, and it wasn't something I was super conscious of, it got a lot of attention, showing up in sneakers, showing up with a more relaxed look. It didn't make people question my professionalism. It just became something, and for me, what it did was it gave me confidence to just feel truly myself.
Right.
I wasn't trying to make a statement. I didn't, it was never about that, but it was, I guess, the beginning of me stepping into the person that I feel most truly
and it's
who I am
that
inside.
Disruption of tradition
that
brings you to a more genuine and authentic lifestyle. And lifestyle meaning your business, your life, your love, your family.
I had
whatever.
a male partner of mine say to me, Romi, you really need to kind of start dressing more like a grown-up. And this is when I was working in finance, and I was like, yeah, this is about as grown up as I get. Like, this is the vibe. And it's funny because when COVID happened and I was still in finance and we flipped it to Zoom, the first 2 weeks, all the men were still showing up wearing
shorts on.
They had shorts, but top was like groomed, shaved, the whole bit. 2 weeks in, hats are on
Yeah.
backwards, scruff is growing in. And what I think I saw the shift was they started to realize like who you are, the advice you're giving, the work you're
Right,
doing,
right.
people are getting that, whether
Right.
you've got your hat on backwards. And I'm not saying we shouldn't still look
Right.
put together. But I think there's something to be said for the many steps we start to take towards becoming truly who we are.
Where I had that most, the biggest transition or the biggest thing I felt was when I lived in Europe. So there's the American way and there's the European way. And dressing in Europe, people are more like, this is how I look.
Yeah.
This is what I do. What's your problem, right? Unless you're working in a bank or something.
Yeah.
But even then, they would be, you had their own quirky stuff going on, right? Because what they woke up in the morning is where, they shopped at the thing and they went to work and then they came home and then they went out. It's like, because you have a teeny tiny apartment and you live in a city and you're in the country, it's like the logistics of changing your clothes. I think when I lived in New York, when I was working in New York, that's where you experience it the most. Whatever you had on in the morning is what you were day into night, right? Is what you were going to wear all the way through into the fancy dinner that you had at night.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like this whole like dress for the job you want. Like I get that, but
Yeah. I'm
and
with
it's
you
so
on the
hard.
but.
Like it's so hard now because like I'm, the age I am, and if somebody who's like, what are they, Gen X, Z,
I
Y,
don't even
F,
know what
I
I
don't
am.
even know, millennial, whatever, and they come in and they're wearing something like, I'm like, wow, that's not office appropriate. And I have to check myself and say, why do you say that? What is wrong with there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And like, you have to catch yourself.
Yeah.
Because the train track that you're on has taken you like this. And it's like, whoop, nope, we need to have a thing on that train track where it stops me and say, nope, she's good. Like, well, that's good. I don't know if I could wear that.
Exactly.
Maybe when I was 21.
Yeah, not even for me. Probably not even. But I think all of this to say that there is something very, at the risk of sounding kind of stupid about it, but like something kind of magical about like going through all of these different events in your life and then coming to a place where you're like, this is it. This is who I am. This is what I stand for. For me, I come from a background of like a lot of people pleasing. I suffer from it because I don't like to let people down. It's a real thing and it's been a real struggle. And so when I started to push back a little bit because it just wasn't making sense for me to say yes to everyone, that was uncomfortable. But it also started to feel like so much better.
The best thing is when you actually say, I don't care if they like me. This is what I'm doing. I don't care if they like it. And if they don't like it,
And when you are your authentic self, the right people will be drawn to you, and then you will build a community around yourself of other like-minded people.
Yeah.
And you don't need all those people that don't like you because they're just not, going to get you.
And in
that's
essence, they're probably just jealous of you because you've gotten to the point where you're like, I don't care if you like me or not.
Yeah.
Well, I think the problem or the downside, if you will, of growth or on this journey of like self-discovery is that there are people that are not going to be able to join you on that journey because they are not comfortable with the new version of
They're
who
not
you
there
are.
yet.
And they're not comfortable with themselves.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's
that's
sad
what it
for
is.
them.
It challenges
It's
them.
sad.
It
Yeah.
makes them, it forces them to look at themselves and they're not ready and they don't want to. And so you being close to you is a constant reminder of what they're not
Correct.
doing. And, for me, even on my journey with the Daily Drip and where I'm at and how much I love it, plus I have a family, I don't have a lot of extra time and energy for other things. And I've lost friends because I just couldn't time-wise give, I'll be the first person to answer the phone, but I couldn't show up the way I used to. And it cost me relationships. And at first I was a little upset about it, but now I'm just kind of like, you know what? This is just another phase and season that I'm going through. And I need to be around people that want to cheer for me, not people that are, making it about them.
Expect something from you.
Exactly. Like, I have my best friend from elementary school, high school, and other parts of my life. And I wish I could have carried all the people from all those parts of my life, but the ones that I have carried are the ones that are still meant to be on the journey with me. So it just kind of reinforces what you guys were
We
saying.
have like 13 of us that were grade school, high school, like through life and stuff. But there's like, the big group is like 13-ish, but the core is like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But those are the people that literally, like, you want somebody who really knows you. Like, when I talk to them, I'm like, oh,
Exactly.
Like,
Well,
you
it's
get-
why
it's like, yeah.
community becomes
Yeah.
so important. I think that's what, like, even for Nicole and I, and how this all came about. It's like, it's being able to be around people that are understanding where you're at.
Well,
and,
I think
and
too,
connect
like
to
you have
that.
husbands, so they've been around for 20 years or something. Like, when you don't have that at all, your
Yeah.
connection is your friends, right? And so to have that, like, available to you is significant, right? It's very, and what I did learn in your, like, you have to be serious about being a friend. Like, you have to also show up for them. So it's not just about taking. And that's where it's hard, especially when you're going through seasons of, like, I've got so much going on, I don't have a lot of bandwidth to give you. But you can at least make a phone call. You can at least, you know, like, you have to, like, still commit to some form of
Connection.
touch base.
Yeah, and I think you start to look at and think, am I doing those activities though because I'm worried about them being upset, or because I genuinely want to be
Yeah,
in touch
yeah,
with this
exactly.
person? Like,
Yeah.
that's a tricky space too, because I went through that. Whereas, like, I better just send a text because it's been so long. But at the same time, I'm like, but now I'm forcing something that maybe it's just time.
Yeah.
You know, like, it was, I had
it's
a
like,
lot of
yeah.
friends that don't understand, you know, sort of the chapter I'm in my life right now, and that, you know, I'm doing something outside of being a mom that I really, really care about, that really matters to me. And it is going to take a lot, and it does use up a lot of my time. And I can't manage friendships that don't align with that. And I think that's kind of part of, like, shedding expectations. Like, I can't show up for you like that. And if that's what you need, I'm learning to get okay with that. That took some time though. And I think that's, like, there's a maturity phase that comes with that, and a deep sense of self-awareness.
There's another word I need a new definition
Maturity?
for. Yeah.
Well, life experience. I mean, I
I
don't
don't know. I still
know.
have to. That's like, that to me is like creativity, maturity. Like, there's certain words that we use as, like, everyone will know what I'm talking about. It's like, there has to be a better word for it, because I hate using overused words.
Yeah.
I want to make it more defined somehow.
And I think maturity can mean so many different things too.
Yeah.
And in some ways, it can have a negative connotation, like, oh,
I only look
she's
at
a
it
very
as negative.
mature
I
woman.
don't.
You know,
Yeah.
no, when you get to a
Yeah.
certain age,
Yes.
mature is actually can be a
Kind of
insult.
insulting.
It's kind of gross. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's funny because I look at maturity and I think of evolved. I think of
I like evolved much better.
so say evolve.
It's much better.
yeah. I
It's
just
much better.
I think
mature
there's-
has, like, it has strings on it, and those string attachments are connected to too many things. Where evolve is kind of
Evolve is a great word.
Mature feels
go.
like a balloon being held down, where evolve feels like it's something that can spring up.
Yeah.
So I go for words that can create energy.
And I
Yeah.
think for anyone who's listening, I think my advice, you know, based on our conversation and what they've heard us say today, is try and start to tap into what are you doing for you versus are you doing this for other people? Because the longer, I think, like, we would all agree that maybe that time frame went a little longer than we would have liked. So if I were to share anything, like, start asking yourself those questions early on.
That's right.
You know, it's not a luxury.
I wish I could send myself a letter at 30, like,
Right.
psst,
Yeah.
like, here's the secret, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to
Yeah.
live it to know
Yeah.
it,
You
do
right?
because you don't want to change any aspect of your life because you wouldn't be where you are right now.
I know. Yeah.
It all
Well,
happens for a reason.
It all got you here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
So-
Yay!
Mics are
Mic drop.
dropping. That's how we're closing it out. Thank you both. This was such an amazing conversation, such a great episode. I hope everyone enjoyed, and we'll come back and listen. This is the end of our Her Pursuit podcast for today. Come back for our next one.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Her Pursuit.
You can listen to new episodes every other Wednesday on Spotify or watch us on YouTube. Stay in the loop on all our virtual and in-person events, read our latest articles, and catch new episodes by subscribing to our free weekly newsletter.
Check out the episode notes for more details, and we'll see you here on our next episode of Her Pursuit.